I want to take a pause for a moment and ask you about your shirt. Do you have Ukrainian roots, friends there?
Well, actually, I was born in Ukraine. I was born in Lugansk, and when I turned 16, I actually went to Moscow when I entered to the university there. And actually, most of my life, I lived in Moscow. But all my family lived there. All my friends from the childhood to the present years still there. I used to work in Kiev in Ukraine. I was the CEO of one of the major network over there for a couple of years. So I developed big bonds with those people. And of course, the aggression from Russia, when the war happened, that was a big shock for me. And not only for me, but for all my friends. So now everything what I've tried to do right now to support this country in many ways, mentally, financially. I want to be honest, I'm wearing this t-shirt just for purpose because if people will see that, they will at least start asking questions. 5,000 people dying every day. But it's just the words. I know those people. Some of my friends fighting there in the trenches. And every time receiving those messages from them, telling what the awful things happening there, it's a hell there. Behind those numbers, it's real lives.
Exploring life's journey, one story at a time. This is TrailHeads with Jim Barrett. Welcome to TrailHeads. I'm Jim Barrett, and I'm here today with my longtime friend and colleague, Leonid MAZOR, who is the Senior General Manager and Studio Coordinator for GHS TV at my alma mater, Germantown High School. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So, Leonid, the show is called TrailHeads, and so one of the common bonds that we have as I talk to people about things that they do physically in nature, those kinds of things, to sort of keep their mental head straight. Are there any things that you do to connect with nature or to exercise?
Honestly, to say, I'm an urbanist. I'm not a big fan of nature, but I have a friend, and actually, this friend is my wife. She's obsessed with nature. On a younger age, she did what it's called the mountain tourism. When she went to the real mountains like a Tanshan in Kyrgyzstan and the Altai and all the other places, and she was there, it was sometimes it looked very dangerous to me with the backpack. She actually passed those things to my kids. They doing this all the time. My youngest son, Misha, he's living in Costa Rica now. So every day he ran about 3 miles and just feeling so good about that. My older son who live in Maine, which is, it's Maine. It's a lot of forest and stuff like that. And he's also hiking a lot. And they're all telling me that I need to do it. We haven't seen each other personally for a long time. I'm talking you and me. I saw you in the different times, and you will look differently, younger and very much healthy. But right now, looking at you and see how healthy you are, when I ask you how you achieved that, you said this is what I'm doing. Hiking, because I saw a lot of posts, and I just decided, maybe he will be my influencer in a way, so I might try to do that. Even look at the picture of two of us, you look much skinnier than I am.
It's just television. It's just,
So I would consider to use the influencer. I'm not promising anything, but I will keep in mind that I have to do that. And I really recommend to everybody else to just kind of think about that. And actually, it's looking at you, I'm jealous. That's probably the right word.
Well, get your amazing wife to get you, and maybe Mila can take you and you can do an easy, walk around the block. That's how it starts. That's how I started in about 2018. Well, I will wish you well. I will be thinking of you the next time I'm on my little hike. I'll be thinking of my friend Leonid and wishing you good luck on the trails.
Thank you.
Our relationship goes back, gosh, about 30 years this year, because we went to Russia together, and you were our Russian advisor. But I'd kind of like to start even before that. When did you move from Russia to the United States?
Our family immigrated to the United States from Russia in 1992. I know exact day, October 16. This is my son's birthday, my oldest son's birthday.
And then you met my mentor, your colleague and friend, Frank Bluestein, not long after that. Talk about how that meeting unfolded.
But honestly to say, when we moved here, in the States, I mean, it's a different culture. It's a different environment. With my professional background, I was a television director, directed one of the famous comedy show in Russia. So it was a struggle to find a job here. I was refused by many affiliated stations here in Memphis, but because they were small, when they look at me coming with my resume with a lot of shows, what I did, I have a stamp overqualified. So that was a struggle. And because we are Jewish, means me and Frank Bluestein, like sailor could recognize the sailor, Jew can recognize the Jew, only look at it.
Well, I want to get some clarification, because when you say you directed a show in Russia, my understanding is it was the equivalent of a sitcom, like Friends, right?
It's actually more equivalent as a Saturday Night Live.
Okay, a sketch comedy.
Sketch comedy. Only the difference was it was a competition. It's like, who is lying anywhere? There's two teams competing with jokes. But there was big teams, it was play on a big stage in front of the 2,000 audience, with 16 cameras. It was a big show, and that was a difference. And they compete in parodies, musical sketches, improvisation as well. So it's very different. Sometimes when the people ask me what the heck it was, it's hard to explain, because it's a combination of many things what was done here. But as we try to find the similarity, it's probably Who is Lying Anywhere and the Saturday Night Live. That's kind of a mix, and the competition.
That's fascinating, because when I went, I'm going to flash forward for a moment here. When I went to Russia, which you helped facilitate that trip, were our Russian advisor, one of their alumni took us to his day job, which was, and I don't remember the TV network, but they do a nightly show called Lotto Million, and they broadcast to some huge audience there. When you were talking about it's hard to describe, I snuck my video camera in there and shot some video of them live. So 1 minute they're doing a lottery drawing, and then the next minute there's a group of cheerleaders out there doing cheers, and then there's a beautiful singer comes out and sings a song, and then they're doing a game show. So literally in the space of a half an hour, it was like 4 different genres all wrapped into one thing. What was the name of your show?
The name of the show was KVN. Deliberately translated, it's Club of Funny and adventure people. So because it was live and all the improvisation was live, you have to find yourself to make a good jokes and stuff like that, and you have to exchange that. And you have a jury of the people who is actually related to the humor, and they decided, which team is won. And it's like a tournament.
Okay.
It started like as a 8 quarters, then it goes to the quarterfinal, the semifinal, and actually the finals, and you become to be a champion for this season. So it's kind of about 8 shows per season. And then it's become to be a movement, like a youth movement. Everybody in Russia, I mean, all the universities, even factories, and even cities has their own team. And they compete in order to get on a screen for the major network, which is the Channel 1. And now, I mean, it's still a big one. It's united about, I don't want to give the numbers, but it's 1 million people, who involved it.
Wow. So on the subject of your show, my understanding is that Vladimir Zelenskyy was one of your colleagues. Is that right?
Zelenskyy was the captain and member of one of the team which was competing in that show. Over the years, when I went back to America and came back to Russia and become to be a CEO of one of the biggest network in Ukraine called Inter, Zelenskyy and his friends, they already have a production company, and they have a humongous show which was very, very popular. It's called the IDF's Block, which is 95 Kvartal. And Zelenskyy was a leader of that team, as well as the owner of the company with some other people. And that was actually kind of our relationship reinstated, and we work very closely as the partners and colleagues. 2 of the TV series, what I did in Russia, was done with Zelenskyy company. Even
Wow.
his name in the credits, in the opening credits on, well, two of my TV series that I did. I think it's somewhere behind me. That one, right? That one. Okay.
Yeah.
It's called Fathers. That was actually his idea, and I created that idea, and I directed 16 episodes of TV series.
Wow.
Yeah, I have a relationship with him. We met, and I know, and I can see how changed he is. I mean, from the very popular, you cannot imagine his celebrity level was as highest as could be in Ukraine and in Russia as well, when the relationship was fine. Zelenskyy actually took my place as the CEO of the company, and worked there for a couple of years, which made that channel even more successful. I wasn't a good CEO, I can tell. For many,
I'll bet you were. Come on.
no, there was many reasons. Because to be honest, I'm more a part of the creative than administrator, and I never like to be administrator because it's limited a lot of creative stuff. By the way, when Zelenskyy was there, it's opened more venues for creativity, especially for the channel. They changed a lot over there. Then, he became to be a president.
How does it feel, though, for you to look and to see him in the headlines and leading the country where you were born, and from the background he came from?
It was very interesting for me. First of all, it was surprising that he became to be a president. But the show, what he was the lead on, The Servant of the People. That was the name of the show, Sluga Naroda, which is actually just a common person become to be a president of the Ukraine. That show made him so popular. And actually, it's probably helped him a lot in the presidential campaign. I never believed that is going to happen, but it's happened in the States. We have an example as Reagan, who become to be the president as well. So the people need a lot of change, and they want to see the young person as a lead. And he has all these qualities, to be the leader. And I can see the change inside of him. I think he still have the same drive, but it's become to be more serious. So unfortunately, the smile just kind of disappeared from his face. Only probably he smiled when the Russian been defeated. That's when he will start smiling again, and probably he will be glad to pass the torch to somebody else who will lead the country after the war, which I really believe that Ukraine will win, and this horrible time will be over.
Thank you for that. You and I met around the time that Frank Bluestein, who, from my perspective, was my teacher. I started taking classes from him in my sophomore year, so around 1980. I took a mass communication class from him. But he was also, at the time, was the director of the theater. I mean, he became what was known as the fine arts chairman. So he was the director, producer of the plays that we did. And then the summer before my senior year, he made all of the contacts and connections to get the town of Germantown to agree to have a cable access station put in the high school where students like me and others would produce the programming. And so he basically gave us the keys to it was called the Poplar Pike Playhouse. That's still the name of it, right, for the theater?
Yeah, for the theater, we still have a Poplar Pike Playhouse. And I just want to add something. Frank actually organized the first fine arts department in Tennessee, and actually in the Mid-South. There was no fine arts department per se, which is one department which is united art, band, theater, and obviously that came the television. So, whatever he did, he not only did this for the Germantown, he did this for the entire Mid-South region. And then many people start mocking that. And when he made that agreement with the city of Germantown to open on the premises of Germantown High School the municipal television, that was a completely new thing. There was, even in California, was not that type of connection even, what he did. So you and him, and all the others, what was with you was the pioneers to open this type of collaboration.
Well, and on top of that, too, even within the community of Germantown and Memphis, greater Memphis, Germantown was known as a big athletic school. The football department was huge, basketball, everything. And so some people might look and say, oh, that's great. They have sports and they have fine arts. Well, there was a competition. There was, as you said, looked at as I think that he even jokingly refers to it as, they said, it was a Mickey Mouse sort of program. It was sort of Mickey Mouse, sort of a joke. For the longest time, Frank had a Mickey Mouse sculpture on his desk I think, to sort of make fun of that, to look at what's become. And you, for those who don't know, took that baton that Frank had established for those first 30-something years. And when you came in, not knowing what was to come, but I just want to say right now, before we get into everything else, thank you for taking that baton as wonderfully and professionally as you did, and with your heart, and carrying it on, because GHS TV is still going strong. The theater department is still producing. And thank you, Leonid MAZOR, for doing that.
So thank you for saying that. But to be honest, what Frank actually developed as well, he developed a strong team who work with him. And with his perfectionist mind, he kind of magnetized the people who work with him. And honestly, I'm so proud now to work with the same people. By the way, 3 of them, they graduated the same program. You know, Mallory Kenny, who is our senior content producer, Bobby Ramsey, who is our video engineer, without whom we cannot do anything, and Hope Henniger, who is just graduated of GHS, Allison Long, who is our fine arts department chairman. They all came from that. So, I mean, for me, it was so easy to fit in that team and to work with them.
Yeah. There is a real sort of legacy there, and
absolutely,
you've kept it alive and kept the spirit of that. Because I mean, you, even though you started the job that you're in now about 10 years ago, correct?
Yeah, I came back from Russia, which we'll talk about this again. 10 years ago in 2015, I came back to the same office, and just kind of took over with the TV studio and I happen in the theater as well. And this is what we are doing. And we are keeping this legacy. We are, with the help, of course, of the team and all our alumni.
I remember the first time I met you. I had come back, as I used to do when my parents were still with us and lived in the Memphis area. I would come back for the holidays usually and come see a show. But I met you when I came back to see the production of Chess. You were described to me at the time as the translator, but you were much more than that. Tell me from your perspective what that first job at Germantown was like.
So when I'm trying to say, the Jewish community is so very close, and the word of mouth was spread out that there is the Russian guy who has a credential as a television and the theater director came in town. And also back then I did the play. I was invited by Sherwood Laurie to do the play in theater Memphis. That was Memphis in May, the one of the big festival that Memphis has. And I directed the play Anastasia. So the word kind of came out, and that time Frank directed the musical Chess, which has it was a tension between the Russian Grossmeister and the American Grossmeister, some kind of like a Fisher, back then. And I believe Karchnoy, or maybe. I don't remember who was the analog in the Russian side. Anyway, this play has a lot of Russian words in it. So Frank, because he is a perfectionist one more time, he want the kids actually saying this exactly right. And that's what he looking for somebody. So he find me. We had a lunch. We had a great time, because we kind of almost like that. We find some mutual bonds with each other. And he said, do you want to try it? And I start trying, and in a way he saw, because it's me. I was so much involved in acting. He sees that I'm start directing them in acting. He likes that. So we have a very good time with that. And then, of course, we will talk in a minute, then the Russian trip has happened, and that's what the beginning. But I remember one thing, and I think it's very funny, because when we came here in the States, we didn't have a lot of money. We left everything what we made. We left in Russia for many reasons, because my wife's parents still there. So we decided to just kind of start a new life from scratch. So we came with the 2 kids and the 2 suitcases and the $200 in the pocket. Wow. So for this $200, I bought the suit. Which, because I'm not a suit man. I never wear the suit. So, but I was told, and I read it about that, you have to be very presentable to come and just present yourself. So that I need to buy the suit. So for $200 in 1993 suit, it was pretty.
That's a nice suit.
Yeah, it was very nice suit. All my relatives think that I'm stupid, and they told me that I have to return it. But I was persistent and I was stubborn. And so I started looking for the job, and I went to the different places. And as I said, to the TV stations and and to the different theater. Of course, I was refused, and many of them, they said, we will call you back. My accent and the resume, which has so many grammar mistakes and stuff. I mean, I'm still not writing well, only with the help of GPT now. So then I found the Playhouse on the Square on the Yellow Pages. I don't know if anybody now remember what this Yellow Pages is, but I did find in the Yellow Pages Poplar Pike Playhouse, and so I came there, and I did not realize where I am because it was the high school. I mean, I didn't even realize that this is the school because the way how Frank actually set up everything. You come to the main office, C building, and you see the box office with the posters and everything on the walls. So I still feel, and there is another side has all the trophies and stuff like that. So I was very confused. And there was a girl in the box office. And of course, who was that girl? Allison Long, who now the chairman of the Fine Arts Department. So she was the one who actually saw me over there. And then Karen Dean came. She was an acting teacher back then. She's retiring right now. And then they called Frank, but Frank wasn't here. So then he called me back, and this is how all this started. But I mean, it's very funny how the fate worked. I met Allison Long as a student back then, and now,
now you work together.
Yeah, now we work together, and she is my boss in a way for the whole Fine Arts Department, and we have a very close relationship. And she actually the one who called me after the Frank retired and asked me to come back because she really wanted to work with me, and I didn't refuse to do this.
Well, I want to go forward and backwards at the same time here. So it's kind of Star Trek-y. We're going to jump around in the time machine. So in 1994, this happened outside of my field of vision. A group of Russian students were traveling across the United States, trying to find schools to sort of partner with the Moscow International Film School. And they were a film and theater school, whereas we at the time were a television and theater school. But as my understanding is that they came to town about the time that the Germantown Festival was going on. And they came to the high school because they'd heard about the program there that you just described from your first perception of it. And at that point, because they had been to 4 or 5 U.S. cities, starting in San Francisco and working their way into central United States, and just happened they were going to stop in Memphis, I believe, just to spend the night. And then somebody said, oh, you should look up Frank Bluestein and look up this school, and had this amazing exchange, which I'm sure you were a part of, correct?
I received that call in the middle of the night from Frank telling me, there's a bunch of Russians here and I don't know what to do.
The Russians are coming.
That's right. The Russians are coming, and he doesn't know what to do with them because I remember before the festival, I think they put them in the gym, find some mats when they sleep on it. Somehow through the International Thespian Society, they find his name because I think he was a chairman of the Thespian Society in the Mid-South, I believe. Yeah, and that's how they found him. And then he asked me to come. That was during festival, the live coverage. He came to talk to them, and I did spoke with them. I mean, I was really amazed what they did. That was very brave.
I'm here with 3 performers you might have seen earlier. They are dancers from Russia. What is your name?
My name is Sergei, and here is Olga and Lisa.
Great. How long have you been in the United States touring?
That's already for 2 weeks and a half. We started in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, and we're now in the middle of our way here.
To rent a 2 van and travel all over from the Friska, right, to the...
I think they actually bought the 2 vans. That they
didn't rent it. You're right. They bought the van.
They didn't know you could rent vans, and so they saved up the money and they bought 2 vans and traveled across the U.S. in these vans.
That's right. And they were very young and very, very ambitious. And of course, with all these Frank deals, he kind of feel that's an opportunity. He never missed any opportunity. And that was the year when the relationship between 2 countries kind of getting closer. I mean, it was so far before the present leader, if we can call him leader of the country. So he feel that, and he made for them, that was a real Southern hospitality, to just take their accommodations and bring them to the class, let them talk to the kids.
They've been traveling, even in Europe, they've traveled extensionally, and then now they're traveling here in the United States. They've really not found a school that really matches what they do in Moscow until they come here, where where the theater as a film and the video is integrated, and where you have to do both things.
And he kept that notion that he can do it. If those people who doesn't have any money and only the ambitious, and he has ambitious energy and can gather money. I mean, consider the Germantown was one of the richest little city, near Memphis. He did that, and this is how this whole adventure began.
This is about the time that I entered the picture, where Frank Bluestein reached out to me and a couple of other alumni. Well, me and Martin Cutler, who were both working in television in different ways. And then Paul Sloan, who was teaching at the time there, who was also an alumni. And he asked us if we would be a part of some kind of Russian exchange. He didn't know what it was going to be, but he told the story that you just told about this amazing meeting between these Russian students traveling across the U.S. and how bonded they became with our students in that short time. I think it was just over a weekend, right?
That's
one
right.
of the busiest weekends you guys have, by the way, because the Germantown Festival is a huge event. One of their leaders, when interviewed later, said, we met all these different schools that were similar to us, but Germantown was the only one who said, with Frank Bluestein and with you there, well, we're going to come and visit you. And the Russians are looking at each other like, you are? Okay, wow. And they didn't really believe it at first. And then over the course of the year, you guys made it happen. You guys raised the money and got the parents on board for what became this amazing exchange. And it's remarkable now because that was all on the heels of, some people may not remember what Perestroika was, but I gather that you and your family came here on the heels of Perestroika. Is that right? I mean,
that's right.
Can you explain for people who don't know what exactly was Perestroika?
Well, what has actually happened in 1985, close to 1985, Russia was in an economic hole, and there is so many leaders who run the Russia back then start dying, and then all of a sudden there was a man among all of this conservative government who is named Mikhail Gorbachev. Everybody knows this name right now. So he's the one who is actually open Russia to the capitalist economy. Let's put it this way. And it was a very unhealthy project for all the Russia, because with the economist open to the capitalist economy, you also need to have a democratic freedom as well, the right of speech and all of these kind of things, which they call glasnost. Probably somebody heard that, which is open air to express your opinion about not only about yourself, but about everything what's going on with you in the country. So it's a freedom of speech, which wasn't complete, which we did not have for 70 years back then in Russia. So that was the great attempt that actually led to the changing the way how the Russian economy start work, the political way that was take to the end of the Cold War. Russia started opening to the West and for the state as well. And I said this was unhealthy from one hand because it was hard. People struggle a lot, but it gave so much opportunity to the people who is the great mind, economy-wise, creative one. And this was a hard but golden years to redo the country. It was a revolution in a way. And that's what it's called, Perestroika. Of course, many things change over the years since 1985 for right now, mentioning the wars, and all the other things, what happened in Russia. But in 1992, for me, even I was very much successful back then. I think because I have a spirit of adventure in a way, and most of my family, including my father, mother, all my family, actually, it was 32 people. They already moved to Russia because it was a hard years, for the people who struggling economically wise, and many other things. It was a sense of poverty in a way. It's not like we're really related to our family, but somehow we feel that we need to move. I mean, they thought. I didn't think about that. I was fine. I was on the top of the TV Russian directors. I did the theater stuff. I wrote different scripts for the play. I mean, I was the director for that TV show and also the one of the creative producers there. So I feel fine. But I was invited in 1989 to United States in Fargo, North Dakota. They have a humongous performing arts school over there. This is the first time when I was abroad, I feel like I'm in a movie. But that performing arts school actually gave me the idea that I can try, because I did the play over there. I did the musicals. I did this actually 3 years in a row. I did the musicals over there. I teach acting. We also organized the humongous international project, which we brought the people from China, Australia, Hungary, Russia, and did this whole joint project. So I kind of feel, okay, I can do it. So I told my wife, because the family's there, let's do it. So we moved in the state.
Wow.
So, and the rest, it's history.
Wow, that's amazing. To put it that way, too, that you're at the top of your game in Russia.
I was.
And how much you sacrifice, how much you compromise. Was your wife working there?
She is a chemist. She worked in one of the biggest laboratory, in the technical institution over there. She
had a lot. She had a lot on the line too. Then looking for the opportunity in the U.S. But you guys both had amazing jobs and careers already.
Amazing. That's the harsh word,
Okay.
But we were settled. Let's put it this way. But there was the moment that you feel that you somehow not developing well. I just feel there is something stopping me to move on. I don't know. This is very subconscious, but I have that feeling. In order to sacrifice, yes, we lost the house, we lost the jobs, and even we were settled, we didn't know what we expected here in the state. Somehow I feel that I will succeed.
Yeah.
But well, it was hard years, until I met Frank Bluestein. I'm not just praise him, but somehow he extended hand and he actually invited me to the school and start working there, teaching and directing plays and run the television station. I mean, he gave me the life of the mid-class Americans,
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, in 2 years after I met him, we bought the house. Both of my sons went to Germantown High School, and my wife found a job. She's actually the first one who found it, and thanks for the people, again, from the Jewish community who helped her that in University of Tennessee, when she worked on the cancer cells. There was a big work there. And so that's what it is. And so I feel that I succeed. Maybe I didn't become to be a millionaire, which I wish, but with my sons, who is now very well settled, and with what I'm doing now, I just feel that I done it right. I'm in the middle of my 70s, I believe, and I'm not feeling bad, about the years past.
A year after this meeting that we had with Frank and you and some of the students, after the 1994 meeting of the Russian kids who came through town with their teacher, with their flank Bluestein, Alivana Stepanova, and Sergei Gratchev, who was their sort of alumni. I think he was not the principal of the school, but he was some kind of a high director for them, right?
I think he worked like the guidance counselor,
Okay.
because the principal of the school was Alivana Stepanova. And there was another guy, I forgot his name. He was
Daniel?
very young. What? Daniel.
Daniel.
He was a direct
host. Yeah.
He was, I believe he was her associate.
Yeah. Daniel Saxonov.
Yeah, that's right. And there was another guidance counselor as well, as old as, it's very funny. Every female teacher in that school was called Olga.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
Olga L was the main one, though, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Lippman, that's right.
Yeah. I think at one point we counted and we thought we should write a movie called The Seven Olgas.
That's right.
There were 7 Olgas that we were talking to at that time. And
everyone was Olga.
I remember we were on the plane on July 4th, 1995. So on American Independence Day, we're flying to Russia. About 60 Americans were exchanging with 40 Russians, and we eventually created a documentary that was called 100 Visions. 60 American teachers, students, and some chaperones who flew to Russia to exchange with 40 Russian teachers and students to have an artistic exchange. Everybody's got a camera in their phone now, but then, we still had, smaller camcorders. So it wasn't like kids were lugging around high-end cameras. They had to ask their parents, can I take the camera to Russia and shoot this thing? So what was fascinating was that all of our kids and a lot of their kids documented this thing from their point of view. And so that's why it kind of became this title 100 Visions, that you were seeing it from the perspectives, the point of view of the Russians and the Americans coming together. And the idea was that they were going to use the tools of the craft to sort of shatter stereotypes of each culture. I want to take a pause for a moment and ask you about your shirt. Do you have Ukrainian roots, friends there?
Well, actually, I was born in Ukraine. I was born in Lugansk, and when I turned 16, I actually went to Moscow when I entered to the university there, and actually most of my life starting that I lived in Moscow. But all my family lived there. All my friends from the childhood to the present years still there. I used to work in Kiev in Ukraine. The Kiev, it's the capital of Ukraine. This is actually was before the occupying of Crimea. I was the CEO of one of the major network over there for a couple of years. So I developed big bonds with those people. And of course, the aggression from Russia, when the war happened, that was a big shock for me. And not only for me, but for all my friends. So now everything what I've tried to do right now to support this country in many ways, mentally, financially. I want to be honest, I'm wearing this t-shirt just for purpose, because if people will see that, they will at least start asking questions. 5,000 people dying every day. But it's just the words. I know those people. Some of my friends fighting there in the trenches. And every time receiving those messages from them, telling what the awful things happening there, it's a hell there. Behind those numbers, it's real lives. Many people don't understand that. Many people think that this is just kind of a small international conflict somewhere far away, but they don't understand that that small country actually taking care of the defensive all the year, because Putin would not stop. He will go through Ukraine and do even worse things with the influence, with all the rockets, with all this military tools, that he has in his possession. So Ukraine is a shield, and everything what we can do to support that country, that will only help us to make sure that our kids, our grandkids, and we are as well, be safe. And it doesn't matter where you live, in Europe or all across the ocean.
That's the part of the story I think a lot of Americans don't get. I mean, a good number of them do, that it's not just about Ukraine. It's about if Ukraine falls, then it's in many ways, my understanding is that it's like what Hitler wanted to do in World War II, first Poland and Austria and Czechoslovakia, and then on to the rest of Europe. And fortunately, that was stopped. And so that's why Ukraine is so important, is that it has to stop there. It's my limited understanding.
And many people who has a doubt when we're talking about why United States not to help with the money, with weapons and stuff like that. If many people has a doubt, I hope that will be message to them. This is important. It's important to the whole world. This aggression needs to stop, and we need to do everything. All the peace talks for Putin is just a short time to just reconsider stuff, restate it and move on. He is not going to do any peace talk and all of the ceasefires. It's not working. We need to help Ukraine to stop that evil. And this is so important for us. As much as we can say, this is matter. The people's lives matter. It's as much as it sounds corny, but it is. And the people need to find them inside themselves, those notions. And that will help them to understand a lot of things.
Thank you for that. Let's go back to Germantown High School.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
So with this remarkable career that you had before you came to Germantown, I was going to ask you, did you envision when you were maybe in your 20s or 30s that you would ever be a teacher? Maybe you did. No?
No way. Mm-hmm. No way. I never even tolerate that notion in my mind. And when Frank offered me that, he didn't tell me that I'm going to be a teacher. When he offered me the job, that's happened actually in Nashville when we're visiting the Andrew Jackson mansion, we walk in the park and Frank said, are you considered, to come and work for Germantown High School? Actually, he said for me. I said, yes. I do consider. And I just thought that I will do what Paul Sloan did, just run the television station. But all of a sudden, I figure out that I have to teach classes.
What was that like? What were your first days like teaching classes?
We need to go back a little bit, back about a couple of years, because Bluestein, when I met him, and he kind of see that I'm struggling in terms of finding a job, he hooked me up with Mr. Chism, who was a principal back then in school, and I become to be the substitute teacher. So every morning at 5 o'clock, I expecting the call from the office. if I can come and be the substitute. And I remember that first time when I thought that I was supposed to substitute for some Spanish teacher, me with a hard Russian accent, with the very low skills of the language itself, knowing anything about the Spanish, has to come to the classroom. And I thought I needed to teach Spanish. I was terrified inside. Of course, I didn't. So, but then when I came and I remember Chism, as I understand him well, he said, "Don't worry about it. Just show them the movie."
I want to stop and talk about Ernest Chism for just a quick second, because the late, great Ernest Chism, who was the principal when I was there, and I think had been since the 70s, maybe longer than that. Ernest Chism had a very thick Southern accent. He was from what he said, Hayti, Missouri. He was a huge sports fan. He loved everything about Germantown football, the wrestling, basketball, everything. But guess what? He also loved the theater. Stereotypically, you would never expect a man who talked like that, who looked like that, was passionately in love with the theater. He and his wife, Alice Ann, both. The teamwork between Frank Bluestein and Ernest Chism was something most people would never see coming. And we'll tell this story in a minute about what happened in the middle of Russia when we were supposed to stay and basically what was a brothel in the middle of Uglitch, Russia, what happened and how their partnership surprised the hell out of this guy. Their partnership is almost inexplicable. And you probably saw that from the inside, right? Working with them?
Absolutely. Chism, the first one who told me when I became to be a teacher, he told me never smile until Christmas. Actually, I took this well. That helped me a lot when I came to the classroom in Germantown High School. So then I started teaching. It was hard. The hard because the language. I really tried to prepare myself. Back then, I made a lot of transparencies to put them on a screen so the people will see the thesis, what I'm saying. So I was sure they understand me. And back then, for 4 years, I believe, I was teaching Intro to the Film, Film 2, Intro to the Theater, acting, production class.
Wow.
I did the television studio, and I directed the play with Frank as well. So that was my hell,
Trial by fire, we call it, right?
But it wasn't a type of boot camp in a way with the great purpose. That boot camp helped a lot of people. Boot camp means demands. That was the greatest things about him. He can demand. He using himself as an example. Is he was fair all the time? I wouldn't say that, but he was right. And and if you following his way, if you understand his vision, that was so easy. And this was easy for me to teach the classes because he helped me a lot on that. He developed those curriculums. We're changing this right now because the time it's changed, obviously. But that was very helpful, Then he was pity for me, and he let me not teach anymore. And I only run the television station and did direct the plays in the fall and co-directing the musical with him in the spring.
I want to go back to a different moment in time because producing the documentary, the 100 Visions documentary, you were instrumental too in helping me. Because some of the Russian kids spoke conversational to fluent English, but many of them didn't. And so you were, again, put in the position of being a translator. We're beyond just translating the words. You would say, well, this figure of speech actually means this. And that's what they're really saying, even though these are the words. You were very deep into the translation to make sure that the meaning of what the Russian students were saying came across in the translation. In the producing of that documentary, I asked you, and here's the story within the story, what was it like for you when you left Russia that first time in the early 90s to come to the U.S.? You told the story of one of your friends asking you, well, when do you think that you'll come back? And you said, well, probably never. What was it like in that moment to then find yourself not just working as a teacher and being, in the United States doing what you were doing, but find out, oh, I am going back and I'm going to help with this documentary. What was it like in that moment to realize that you were going to be able to go back?
It was very hard, Jim. It was only 3 years past when we left Russia. When I left Russia, I wouldn't say celebrity, but I feel very much respectful in the business what I did. The people still, because of this show, because I was a participant in this show from the get-go, and actually for the first season when that show was ran, actually. So I was even recognized on the streets, and stuff like that. And for me to come back, I just feel just dealing with the little kids and being around them. I, this is somehow minimize myself. I have this notion in myself. And when I came to the country, I was honestly to say, I tried to isolate myself as much as it possible. Because in some point, I didn't really like what the people from the other schools saying, the way how they handling things. And of course, Frank, I mean, he feel that tension. It was a lot of moments because there was another party involved of that, Project Harmony, which they never organized these things like this. I mean, they were just kind of a driving force under that, but they don't understand the whole relationship between those two things. I mean, because we took the musical over there, the Fantastics. It was a performance in the different cities. Plus, I mean, all these TV projects. I mean, actually, the film project, because the kids supposed to work in a group that create the film project.
Let me stop one second about Project Harmony was a company that Mr. Bluestein had hired so that Mr. MAZOR here, that Leonid wouldn't have to be translating conversations with 100 people at the same time. That was part of their role. But the other part of their role with Project Harmony was often hired by schools when they did an exchange in Russia, and they would sort of take charge. Project Harmony, okay, we're going to go here, we're going to do this, we're going to see these people, and here's the schedule. But Frank Bluestein is like, no, hang on, you guys will translate, and that's great, and thank you, and we'll listen to what you have to say, but this is the schedule. This is what it's going to be. This is what we want to do. And I think that they were sort of like, oh, they weren't prepared for somebody as strong as Frank and Ernest Chism, by the way.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. This is what we're going to do right here. So I think that Project Harmony folks, who were smart people, but they just had never been really hired by people who were that strong in terms of what the mission was and what they wanted to do.
It was a very mixed feeling. I just feel that I'm not in place. People recognize me, even those kids, they saw the show, they don't know how to even relate to me. In other words, I mean, from one hand, I'm a part of the American team. From the other hand, I'm well known in Russia from the different perspective. And it was a wall, kind of, which you have. I mean, which I don't want to break it, to be honest. And that was the whole mixing things. But what has helped me a lot, because I concentrated to helping Frank to find the right way between the Project Harmony and Alla Stepanovna and her team, because they have a completely different vision, how they want to host
and
it.
Also a very strong personality on the
Absolutely. That was a clash with a lot of strong personalities. Mm-hmm. So finally, Frank saw that my attitude toward everything, and he kind of moved me away, just said, you will help me, don't translate it all of it. I'll take care of that, which he did a very great way. And then all of a sudden the ice was break, and when I'm involved in something, I just put all my strings to it, all my forces, all my skills, what I have to it. And the kids see the energy and the interest in what I'm doing. So we were fine. The tension was just dropped, and I was fine. But there was a moment you mentioned before that because Project Harmony organized the culture exchange. There was in their mind, it never was the professional things what Frank and Alla Stepanovna with her team want to do. They didn't expect that. Because everything what they did was on a very small scales. But in the part of that culture exchange was to visit different country, to see the culture, to see the people singing Russian songs, doing kind of that folk things, just kind of very facade, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
That's right, the service, but not go deeply. Frank want to go deeply. He want to know the country. And that's what we see in the documentary, what you did, that's what has actually happened. So, and I remember when we can talk about that, when we went to Uglitch, Uglitch, it's a part of the Gold Ring. This is the several cities around the Moscow, which has a very rich culture and history and is like old Russia, really old Russia, with all the churches, as they kept saying, those houses with the dome, with the onion
domes. Yeah.
Onion domes. It's very deep thing. So we went to that Uglitch, but none of them, Frank, Chism, and all of us, did realize how awful the conditions is there.
Yeah.
Okay, they did not realize that. So because the hotel, when we're supposed to live in Uglitch, it was if I will say dismal pit, this is not going to be the right description of it. You know, I mean, the toilet was broken, no hot water, the
Well,
big.
and the bathrooms were at the end of the hall.
That's right.
And that's common in parts of Europe. But the bathroom was horrible.
But I knew that, Jim.
Oh.
I was in Uglitch. I did the TV, not the TV show. I did the TV musical there for 3 months. I used to live in the same hotel and actually in the same room. I knew that. I know how bad it's going to be. And of course, I mean, everybody was shocked. But for the other people, Project Harmony people, for them, they don't understand why we're just so shocked about it. And that's the Chism came out. I remember this because we're supposed to spend 2 nights there, I believe,
I think
right?
so.
And we only spent 1 night because then Chism said, we're not staying there. I remember that guy.
He used a few other words that you can't say that you just.
And
I'll tell you one thing: we're not staying in this place. Bleep, bleepity, bleepity, bleep.
And I remember the face of that guy from Project Harmony. It just has all the colors what the face can have it, from the pale one to the green, I believe so. So we get in the buses, and we went to Yaroslavl, which was another great city, the oldest theater, the one of the oldest,
It was older than the United States at the time.
It was that's right. And we performed there. Everybody was shocked and don't even find the words, but Chism did find the words. Because with his love for the art, he knows the strong words which can move the art forward.
When you had the personalities between Frank Bluestein and Ernest Chism and you, you had a very more specific and in-depth type of exchange that they weren't used to. And they certainly weren't ready for the passion, shall we say, of Frank and Chism together to get what we wanted out of that trip.
That's
so
right.
God bless them. I know that they worked within the realm of what they were used to doing, and they were helpful in some ways.
They still exist,
Okay, I didn't know that. No.
Yeah, they still exist because I'm writing kind of my, I would say, autobiography, in a way,
Memoirs, yeah.
Memoirs, right. That was a great trip. It's led me to Germantown, and when I worked for 10 years, until I left it in 2005. And went back to Russia. And that was another 10 great years until the war started. And we feel that we have to leave again. And with the offer of Ellison Long, I took it and I came back. As I said, came to the same office with the same pictures on the same place. And now another 10 years that I'm here. I don't know for how long I'm going to do that, but as long as I can.
One of the messages that I got, because when we went to Russia it was close to a month that we were there. So it's not like we were just there for a week and then came back home. We were there, like I said, the Russians came to the U.S. the year before in exchange for a few days. That was a short exchange. Then we organized the trip and went there for the better part of a month. We went to Moscow. You say Moscow or Moscow?
Moscow.
But how should an American say it? Moscow or Moscow?
I think the most common said Moscow.
Moscow. Okay. So we went to Moscow. We went to these smaller villages, Uglitch and Yaroslavl. But there was another Ohotino, where the church.
Yeah, that was a very small village. When we met the guy who worked with Tarkovsky, right?
Father Ion.
Yeah, he is a stage designer, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Akhotina. That was a village, that wasn't even the city.
Smaller group went there.
Yeah.
And then we went to St. Petersburg for the last several days, which is beautiful. While we were on these trips, the American students performed the Fantastics.
Soldiers must fight and prisoners must pray. And children, I guess, must get their own way. The minute that you say yes.
And they performed a show for us called The Marriage of Balzaminov.
That's right. That was a collaboration. We performed, they performed. But I don't think we performed the Fantastic in Yaroslavl. I think we performed like a joint concert.
Right,
and it was
like a review, like a small...
That's right. One thing you will be interested in that, the people who graduated the Moscow Film School, there were several of them who I worked when I came back in Russia in 2005. There was the cameraman, Yuri.
Oh, okay.
No, not Pavel Kapinas. Pavel Kapinas become to be a very famous DP. He worked in the States and he worked in
Commercials, all kinds of.
but I worked with another cameraman. And actually, the actor who was performed the Balzaminov in the Marriage of Balzaminov, Yuri Kolokolnikov, he became to be a huge star. And actually, it's not just a star. He's a very good actor. And he was in Game of Thrones, He played one of those ugly people, who fought, I don't remember what was the part.
They had the shaved heads with the scarring on them.
That's right. But he was in the very big hits, the blockbusters in Russia. And he's the one who is actually was against the war, against Putin. He's still the one. And I respect him for that. Sieva Boldin. We actually with Sieva Boldin, we lived in the same building, even
oh really?
In the same apartment building, and I forgot about him. And then when I did the adaptation of Grace Under Fire, there was a casting, and all of a sudden he came for the casting, and I see the familiar face, but I could not remember who the heck he is. Yeah. And he said, "You don't remember me?" I said, honestly, no, I don't. I'm such and such, we work in Russia. I was in the States. Oh, Sieva Boldin, right. And so I gave him a big part in one of the episodes, of that TV series when I adopted. So I still working very close with the people from that film school, because that film school, I don't know what they're doing now, but they produce very good people and decent people and professionals. Of course, the Pavel Kapinas, what we mentioned, and Sergei Gratchev right now, he immigrated. He went to Great Britain, and he is the lawyer, as I understand. He is the
his own law firm, I believe.
Yeah, in the international law, I think he's doing. And he is actually the one, when the war started, he adopted some Ukrainian family who lived with him in London. So, I mean, this is not the professionals. It's a decent people, and that's great.
Batyr Morgacheva and his sister Vera.
Batyr Morgachev,
excuse me.
And Vera, his sister Morgacheva.
Yeah, he's in the U.S. right now, but
I have no idea.
Yeah, Batyr. I'm still on social media with a lot of them. This is one thing I want to communicate as well, and this is that. Sorry, I don't mean to be condescending for some people out there, but to understand that it probably seems weird to some that Russia right now is our enemy, and what's happening right now with Ukraine, and it's complicated, but it's not complicated, because we're not at war with the individual people of that country, just like in any war, right? That we're all here as human beings. There are political leaders, and there are militaries, and there are governments that have agendas. But one of the themes that came across in 100 Visions, that we had these relationships with all of these wonderful individuals. And the thing that united us all was the arts, our love of theater, of filmmaking, and of television. And we somehow used that universal language to communicate with each other and form these relationships. So 2008, Facebook comes along, and now we're able to reestablish contact with these people, and did for a number of years until this war started. And was it 2022?
War really divided us. It's become the nuance of colors, details of colors just kind of vanished. There is a black and white right now. And there are so many people who you said has a passion, for art, that I don't want to communicate at all. I lost a lot of people who I consider close friends. I lost them because of their mindset, of their support of evil. I lost that. And to be honest, inside of myself, many people asking me, do you have a nostalgia? Do you ever want to go back to Russia? Yeah, sometimes when I close my eyes, I see myself on the streets in Moscow. But once I open my eyes and open the Facebook or any other news, I understand I don't want to do that. It's a borderline, the red line, whatever you would say that I cannot cross anymore. And I don't want to cross anymore, because I don't want to part and associate with that. And I don't know how long it's going to be, but hopefully it's all going to change and we will be able again to communicate. But I don't think so. It will be the people who I want to extend my hand.
Well, and that's true in this country too. There's red and there's blue states. And I think it's starting to change a little bit now that this leader of ours has been in power. And I think that it's starting to soften when people realize, oh, what I voted for. I didn't know it was going to affect me. But even within our own circles of friends, colleagues, and families, even in my own, there's certain people in my family that I just can't communicate with anymore, and it's sad. It's sad, and I hope that'll, because I'd say 20, 25 years ago, this is when I sound like I'm 95 years old. 20, 25 years ago, we could sit down and have a beer, and you'd have Republicans and Democrats sitting across the table, and you could argue about it, but then you'd switch gears and talk about TV, or you'd switch gears and talk about sports. Now it's just so, I have never seen it like this in my lifetime.
Honestly, I have, because of the war in Ukraine. Now even more with the war, with what had happened with Israel and Iran right now. I found some people who try to take sides in the wrong way without even understanding the premises of what has happened. Among the family as well, we have so polar views on these things. And this is what awful that I never expected, that came to United States, settle here, have a successful life, see how my son and my granddaughters growing, and kind of like what, they're accepted and be proud of their life. It never crossed my mind that I would start thinking, do I need to flee the United States now? It's strange. I tried to take away that thoughts out of my mind completely, but the atmosphere is hard. It's hard, it's unhealthy, and I would do whatever it could be of the voice of individual to just try to change that as much as possible. Because we cannot live in a world of hate. We cannot live in a world of divided. This is what I try to teach my kids in the classroom, because they keep asking questions. They keep asking questions about Ukraine. They keep asking questions about Israel. And it's hard to find the right word to explain them, because I don't want to be biased. I try to give them the fair opinion about the things, because we're teaching them news. And that's, what news is now. The word fake news, which came about 5 or 6 years ago, now become to be a normal notion, the normal phrase, that the people are using. I try to explain this to them. I try to them to be fair. And if I can succeed somehow in that, I think, I made a purpose.
Yeah.
In a way.
Wow. There's so much to talk about.
That's right. That's right.
So much to talk about. I would love to do a part 2 of this at some point. Would you be open to that as I put you on the spot?
Jim, I always like to see you. We can talk for years, not even hours, because there is so many things go on in our life. Yes, I will be glad, to be open, because obviously we didn't even touch the Germantown High School and what we're doing in here, which is, I think it's a pretty fascinating thing. Not because I'm running this place, it's just because it's a very unique, it's very different.
Well, let's do this. I want to close this part. I do want to ask you that. What's the difference now between the Germantown High School TV station department that you lead? What are you guys now doing that's maybe different than when I was there, which was, 150 years ago? But I was there between 82 and 83, which was the first year of the TV station. Now it's a pretty different world, but also the same in some ways. Talk about that.
I try to be very brief to explain that, because the notion of Mr. Bluestein, when he made a collaboration between the theater and television, which is integrate in one another, it was very helpful. The class, which is running on a professional way, the theater as the professional business, that people will understand that this is not the community theater, as much as I appreciate what they're doing, but it's very different. It needs to be run in a professional way. The kids produce their own plays. They're raising money, about $30,000 advertising for the playbook and all of this. And from the other hand, it's a model of the real television station that the students has to run. That collaboration was great, and it's worked for years. But there is a time the notion and attitude and desire of the kids change. So lately, we make a decision to separate the department. It's not the divorce, it's a separation. We exist. We're living in the same place as living because most of the time we're spending here for a long time. It's far away from the school hours, that people usually do. We're still existing, we're still helping each other, but we're more concentrated on the different passes, as the theater pass and television pass. That's what required for us to revise the curriculum because you see the informational space, it's become to be bigger and bigger. So the part of like history of television and films, and stuff like that, the theoretical part, people can gain themselves. So we try to concentrate mostly on the practical things. So our intra classes, the beginners, the freshmen, 9th graders, they getting the basic of the television and film in terms of the using the camera, shot compositions, editing skills, and stuff like that. Then when they get to the advanced class, they start working on specific projects, which we're giving to them, like news reports, the PSAs, public service announcements, the documentary and stuff like that. And then this is in their 10th grades. And when they come to the production class, which is 11th and 12th grades, now they're running the television station. We produce about 6 different shows with the different format as the news, as the sport, the talk shows. Beside that, we're covering the big events like a charity horse show at Germantown, all the concerts. We're actually covering the meetings in Memphis Shelby County schools. So we're doing a lot of stuff which is giving the kids great opportunity to explore and have skills how the television work and how the production of the shows are. Beside that, of course, we're growing so much. I mean, you start with 3 cameras and the small switchers, doing the live broadcast of the football and the news shows. Right now, we are doing the live broadcast of the football, but we change the cables to the football field. We have a special commentary booth. I mean, it's 4 cameras involved in that. Our control room look like a real production, the big production control room cameras, what the people use. We're using Steadicam, Jeep, and stuff like that. So the money, what it's giving to us from the government, from Memphis Shelby County School, it's placed in the right way in order to buy everything new, everything is in advance. So when the kids will get to the real job or go to the university, they will be far ahead of their friends and peers. Just to finish that, you actually was the one who changed the meaning of editing in Germantown High School television because you brought the nonlinear editor in Germantown, the Media 100.
Right.
That was a special room built specifically for you with that equipment. And now look, we're using Premiere, we're using all Adobe function, we're using the Avid, I mean, our kids has a lot of opportunities. And obviously, I mean, this is maybe why we've been recognized as the best television station in the nation for 17 times. And actually this, in 2 days, I will be in Boston conference for the Alliance for the Community Media, and we will receive another 7 awards, which still prove that we are part of.
I just want to say congratulations on all of this.
Oh, thank you.
Because in some ways it makes my head spin, but in other ways, the core lessons that we got in 1983 are the same in terms of that it's not even just about the equipment, that it's about the professionalism that Frank Bluestein instilled in us then and that you do now with your students. And I can see it. I can see you guys have this amazing state-of-the-art station that, yes, it's a high school, but I'm sure it competes and probably has better equipment and facilities than a lot of small market actual TV stations out there.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, congratulations to that. How many core students would you say you have now that are in the trenches doing most of your programming, your productions?
Overall, in the television pass, we have about 200 students.
Wow.
That's from the intro to the production phase. Especially who is running this year production class will be 32 kids,
wow.
Who is going to run all of this. And they are running the studio. They're general managers, they're programming directors, they're chief engineering, chief videographers, and all of this. So that's what it is. And one more thing, which probably we need to close the conversation. People ask me if I will compare the year when I left Germantown and I get to this year, they ask me how the students change. Yes, Germantown is different now because, I mean, we're not a part of Germantown School District anymore. We're part of Memphis Shelby County Schools. You know, our diversity changed. But the desire to learn, to be a part of something big, it's still there. And as much as we can, me, myself, and all the people who is working with me can keep that desire and giving them the options to proceed, that's the way how it needs to be. So kids not change. You know, Frank gave you, what was you, 16, 17 years old when you started?
Yes.
He gave you that much responsibility and you took it. And you was not afraid to take it. Those kids not afraid as well. Yes, they have a different perspective, the way, I mean, they reflect, I mean, they might just have an issue to make decisions, but they taking the responsibility and they carrying that. That's what not changed.
Yeah.
And that's what is make Germantown Fine Arts Department to be the Germantown Fine Arts Department.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Leonid MAZOR, for doing
you're
everything
welcome.
you've done to take the baton and run with it strong. And I keep up with GHS TV on social media, and I continue to be amazed to see those young people being passionate about it and taking the leadership to the next level. And just thank you so much, Leonid. I mean, you're a dear friend and a leader in what we do, and I just so appreciate you. And I know that we'll do this again, because I do want to do a part 2 at some point when you get back from your well-deserved vacation.
Thank you again, and thank all the alumni. I know they're going to see it. You know, that podcast with Chris Parnell brought so much memories. And I mean, Chris actually did work in Germantown as well at some point.
Yeah.
But all the alumni who can hear right now, I really appreciate their support, and I hope they will continue to support us. Because right now, it's not only financial, it's just a period of that. And of course, financial as well. We will really appreciate it. I start building the new fund, which is coming from alumni, you know, so, and I really appreciate their help, because all of them, most of them, a lot of them helping us. When the people see the Jim Barrett, those pictures still be on the walls of the studio and in the theater as well. When they see your faces, they know where they could be when they graduate. You know.
Well, for those who are maybe new to hearing about where can people go, and I'll put it right down here, to learn more about GHS TV and how they can help or how they can get involved. You're looking at it right now here, so just look at this, and you'll be able to find more information there. Leonid MAZOR, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking with me here on Trailheads. I will talk to you for part 2 when you return, and have a wonderful vacation, my friend.
Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.